it's Rosie, Cake-Diva, and today I'm going to show you how to make these pretty little flowers like you see on my Fabergé egg. They're just little roses made out of fondant, very easy to do, don't take any special equipment either, so let's get started. Okay, I've got a little bit of fondant that I've coloured with a caramel colour. The reason I've coloured it with caramel is because obviously when we've done these flowers, we want them to be sprayed gold, and if we make them white in the first place, the gold won't take as well. So this just makes it easier for them to look pretty once you've sprayed them. Now the thing about this fondant is I've added a little bit of tylo powder. Now tylo powder is a strengthener, and you can do it without a strengthener, but just to show you the difference, this is fondant that hasn't had some strengthener added, and it's just a little less together, it's a little less strong, and consequently when you're making your flowers it will rip apart and it will stick and it won't be as easy to control. Whereas this, you can see it's got a little more resistance to it and it'll be much easier for you when you're trying to make any shape. So this stuff, tylo powder, or you can use CMC or gum tragacanth, they all do the same thing, and they make your fondant easier to use for anything that wants to hold its shape. So I've also used this tylo powder to make a little bit of sugar glue. I've just added it to a little bit of water, and I'm going to be using that later to stick the petals on. You can use water on its own, but I think this gives it just a little bit more strength when it sticks together. So the first thing I'm going to do is roll out my fondant. However, once I've done that, I'm not going to use it straight away, and I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to do everything in one go, and then all you end up with is sticky fingers and everything sticks together. So now I've done this and you can see that it's pulling and it doesn't hold its shape as well because it's nice and soft and sticky. But I've done one earlier, only a couple of minutes ago, and this, you'll see, has already got a little bit of strength to it, and I can move it around a little bit better, and when I make the petals that's going to hold its shape better. So do yourself a favour, give yourself a little bit of time so that you end up with something that's easier to work with. I'm going to use this circle cutter. If you don't have a circle cutter, it's not the end of the world. You can just use a little bit of fondant wrapped in a ball and just press it, because it'll still do the same job, it's just a little bit harder work. But I'm going to use my circle cutter to cut out shapes, so you don't even need a petal cutter really. Now when I've got some circle shapes, I'm going to make one of the ends flatter, because when you see a nice little petal on a flower, on a rose, it's got a very thin edge to it. So instead of just using that circle like that, I'm going to flatten the edge just with the finger. If it gets too sticky, you can use a little bit of corn flour just to stop it from sticking to your fingers, or you can even go the other way and use a little bit of vegetable fat, which will stop it. But there you go, I've got this nicely thinned edge, and I'm just going to roll that to make the centre of my flower. Now when I'm rolling it, I'm trying not to roll it straight, I'm trying to roll it at a little bit of an angle so that we get a nice little lip to it, which will be a nice central part of our flower. Then I'm going to simply do exactly the same with all the other petals, thin them out at the end, and because I've left this out to dry, air dry just a little bit, it's not sticking as it would do if it was freshly rolled. So then all I'm going to do is pop my petal next to my centre, and I'm going to angle it downwards and flick out just a little bit of the petal to give it a bit of shape. Now if it's not sticking, you can use water or use a sugar glue to stick it on. This is sticking quite well on its own actually, so I'm not that worried. But I'm just going to continue that, and when I place these flowers I'm going to do them offset slightly so they're overlapping, and angling them downwards and flicking them out a little bit, just rolling them out. Okay. As you're putting these petals on, you just give them a little bit of shape to make them look a little bit more natural. And I tend to like to flip them over a tiny bit, but also to give them a little bit of an indent, which tends to make them look a little more like real roses. The further out you go, the higher you want to place your petal, because it then envelops the centre of the flower and gives you more to play with when you want to turn your petal down a little bit. Once you've finished, you need to leave it to dry. If I start moving this, it will just get misshapen, so I'm going to leave it to dry probably overnight if I can, and then I'm going to use a knife just to chop off the end. So I've got this little back to it, and if I just chop the end off, then it's going to be a nice flat back for me to put onto my cake. So I'm then going to spray them gold. I'm using a gold spray for these. You can actually apply them to your cake and then use a luster duster paint on the gold, your choice, or you can use pearl or any other colour you fancy. I hope you find that helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my videos, and thank you for watching.